Hello, this is Brian Rowe for New and IP, and today I'm going to be covering 6 books that I would consider must-reads for anybody who's interested in intellectual property, especially on an activism side, but even covering the basics. Now, the first one of those that I would like to point out is Bound by Law. This is a comic book, a graphic novel. It is an incredible book. It's written by Kieth Aoki, James Boyle, and Jennifer Jenkins. But what it basically does is it outlines the fundamentals of intellectual property law in a way that anybody can understand. It has great graphics. It explains the basics of copyright, of term limits, fair use, user rights, those type of things from the perspective of a filmmaker who is trying to grapple with making a documentary film and the state of copyright law as it is. This is a great introductory book. I often take copies of it with me to any conventions that I go to and hand them out. Sometimes bought copies or otherwise copies that I photocopy myself. I also recommend it in classes that I teach. It's a wonderful basic introduction to copyright that is accessible to anyone. And it's available through Duke Press. The second book that I would like to recommend to everyone is Yochai Benkler's The Wealth of Networks. Now, this is a bit of a tome. It's a bit heavy. It's got some weight to it. It is also a bit dry to read. I mean, I'll be honest. It's out of Gale Press, but the concepts in here are amazing. He goes over different types of commonses, peer production, ideas around political freedom and intellectual property. This is an amazing book. It's a must-read for understanding a digital economy and where things are going. I strongly recommend checking it out. It can also be downloaded for free online. Once again, that was Yochai Benkler's The Wealth of Networks. The third book that I'm recommending is Lawrence Lessig's Free Culture. This is an amazing book. I've assigned this in classes before. What it does is it covers the basics of copyright law in a way that also applies to other forms of intellectual property law, and then explains what is going on in our current culture, how norms, laws, markets, and architecture work together, and in some cases at this point are working against each other. And it also has practical solutions for copyright problems. Some individuals try to brand Lessig as kind of an icon of pirates on the far side. Lessig is really a centrist. I may be a bit more of a pirate myself, but this has much more practical solutions than what you see at just kind of the abolitionist far side. It has solutions that are aimed at trying to transition to a state where laws and norms can work together. This is a wonderful book, and I think one of the most amazing things about it is the way that it is really empowered or reached out to a younger generation to take up and fight for intellectual property rights themselves. I strongly recommend checking out Free Culture. The third book that I'm going to recommend here is probably the most activist on the list. It's Cory Doctorow's Content. Cory Doctorow is a sci-fi writer who also used to work for Electronic Frontier Foundation. This is a collection of his short stories or pieces in The Guardian, nonfiction pieces. This is an incredible book. It looks at everything from digital rights management to the future of ebooks to the hypocrisy going on in museums. My favorite piece in it, there's a really short chapter that covers Andy Warhol at the London National Gallery and how it was really showing remix culture and the rights for free expression. And then it had large signs saying no photography. You can't actually use this art in any way yourself, which I understand is entirely ludicrous, against the nature of what the artist had created. I understand this because I've also been thrown out of the Seattle Art Gallery over similar policies with regards to public domain artwork. But that's a story for another time. Cory Doctorow is just an amazing writer, and he is able to take a lot of the concepts with regards to intellectual property and free culture and put them into a very easy, understandable format. The next book that I'm putting forward may seem a little bit odd for this list. It's a decent book. It's Chris Anderson's Free. I don't think it's an amazing book the way the other ones on here are, but every time I go to talk about copyright, People ask me, how are you going to pay artists? And this is one of the go-to books that I use. There are new economic models coming out every day. Check out Michael Masnick's blog, Tech Dirt, for some of those on a current day-to-day basis. But free really explains the economy of being able to give away some items and charge for others, or other similar models. If you're going to advocate for changes in intellectual property law, the Yochai Benkler book is extremely important, but the Chris Anderson book, Free, takes those same concepts in some ways and puts them into real practical, usable examples. The final book that I'm putting forward is a little more of a traditional textbook. It's Intellectual Property Stories, and this is a collection of articles, mostly done by law professors. These articles are wonderful, and it's a way that I can kind of cheat at this, only putting in 6 books and cover many more authors. Some of the greatest people out there working on these issues are covered in this book. Jessica Litman, who wrote Digital Copyright, has a wonderful article in here about Sony v. Universal, which is an incredible fair use case, allowing individuals to tape things at home and not make Sony responsible for what individuals do with their own private property. It also has extremely relevant cases from up to 100 or 200 years ago. INS versus AP is another one of those cases. This is the hot news doctrine, which I've talked about in the video cast here before, but it really explains the background and how this doctrine came to be. The other thing that this does that the other books don't do as well is it covers all areas of intellectual property. It covers trademark, patent, and copyright. And I strongly recommend checking it out for the wonderful articles by Jessica Litman, Pam Samuelson. There's a wonderful article in here about Baker v. Selden and the limits of copyright. It is a little bit more on the legal side of things, but it's a wonderful read and rather accessible for a legal text. So thank you. I hope that I've given you a few things to go out there and read to better understand intellectual property and why it's so important that we fight for a more fair and balanced intellectual property system. Thank you. This has been Brian Rowe for New and IP.